Hey, everybody, welcome back to the show. This is the Mental Breakdown. I'm your host, Joey Velez. Happy Monday. It's starting to get a little humid and hot here in Texas, so hopefully wherever you're at, you're having a little nicer weather than we are. Although it's better than super, thunderstorms and windy and rainy, So I guess I'll take this over that. One thing I'm grateful for, this is because I recently decided to cut my thumb open while chopping vegetables with a mandolin. If any of you know what a mandolin is, it is super sharp, and I decided to go for one last slice of the onion, being extra excessive, and that was the one that did it. So, what I'm grateful for is opposable thumbs. And the reason I say this is because I didn't realize how much little things you use your thumbs for. Uh, for instance, putting on your shoes and socks, even zipping up, your zipper or anything like that. There are a lot of things where thumbs come in handy, and I'm very glad that it's healed to where I can actually use it now. But yeah, very grateful for opposable thumbs. Now, what I wanted to talk about today was this idea of being positive versus being productive, because I think a lot of times when people think of psychology, people think of, living a good life, having a good mentality. It's you have to be positive. And while yes, positivity can be helpful, but it's more about being productive, in particular, more about being optimistic. So those research done with the UC Berkeley swimming team. And this is one of my favorite pieces of research. I've taught a lot, but what the researchers wanted to do would they wanted to see, based on how they explained a failure, how would they do in a second trial. So what they had everybody do after they measured, had to take questionnaires, measured like what their thinking styles were. They had them swim their favorite race, and then they told them you're going to get a 15-minute break, at which I'll give you your times, and then you're going to go ahead and swim your race again. Okay, but what the participants didn't know was that after that first swim, that first attempt, they were going to be given a false time. They were going to be given a time that was about 3 seconds slower than what they actually swam. And what they wanted to see was those who they identified as being more optimistic people and those who identified as being more pessimistic people. How would that change the results going into that second trial? And what they found was that in the second attempt, those who were deemed more optimistic thinkers actually swam faster than the original time they got. So let's say they swam, a 50-meter breaststroke in 10 seconds, they were told 13. That second attempt, they beat the 10-second mark. Versus the pessimistic people, they actually swam worse than the fake time they were given. So if they swam that same race in 10 seconds, they were told 13. They actually swam slower than 13 seconds. So it begs the question, what took place during that 15-minute break? So when we're talking about being optimistic as opposed to just being positive, let's say you make a mistake. If I'm told to be positive, well, that tells me to have high energy, tells me to be happy, tells me to be smiling, tells me that everything is all good. When in reality, if I just failed or I made a bad mistake, everything isn't all good. So telling someone to be positive isn't always going to have the result that you think it might have. However, it doesn't have to be the end of the world after a mistake. And that's where the idea of being more optimistic comes in. Because if we're talking about being a true optimistic person, one, you're realistic, right? You understand and acknowledge the situation for what it is. I made a mistake. This is not good. However, where optimism comes in is now you're more likely to focus on what you can control in the situation versus placing blame on other people. But you also maintain hope and confidence in yourself and that things can get better, right? So we're looking at the pessimistic swimmers or the optimistic swimmers who were told that they swim pretty slow. Maybe during that 15-minute break, they're saying, okay, well, this turn could have been a little bit more tight. I could have held my breath a little longer for this time. I could have jumped off the blocks a little quicker versus somebody who's more pessimistic might be like, well, the researcher doesn't know what they're talking about. The temperature was too cold in the pool. Or I didn't stretch enough. Things like that. And then also in terms of like maintaining hope and confidence that things will get better. The optimistic people in that second are like, all right, let me work on those 1, 2, or 3 things, and let's go out there and see if we can do a better job. Versus those who are pessimistic, it's like, well, if that's the time I'm getting, and I thought I swam pretty good, then what's the point in trying again? Right. So it's better about, or it's more about not necessarily being positive in these situations, while that can be helpful, it doesn't always have the desired results. So it's more about being optimistic as opposed to being positive, because negative things are going to happen, and being positive about it doesn't usually work. So what you have to do is acknowledge the situation for what it is, identify what you can control that you want to either keep the same or do differently, but then also believe in yourself that you can do better the second time around. Okay, and that's what I got for you all today. So the benefits of developing more of an optimistic type of thinking style, as opposed to being positive or as opposed to being a pessimistic individual. Uh, there are ways to build being more optimistic. I think one is just how you reframe the things you're saying to yourself. Right? Oftentimes we have this habit of being more self-defeating. So what you have to do is identify what are the reasons why I feel like I can be successful in this go around. Right, I'm gonna go fail this next test. Well, that's not completely true because I studied an extra couple hours last night. Right, using some of that data, some of that evidence from your past, that lets you know that you're able to do well the next time you go into an event. Or again, it could be simply acknowledging the situation, like, yeah, I might fail the test, but I'm going to give it my best and then just kind of see what happens and then move on from there. Again, not super positive, right? But it's still identifying what the situation is and allowing yourself to kind of get back into the present moment. But then you can always practice gratitude. Gratitude is a great way to build optimism. That's why I start this show off with something I'm grateful for. So maybe this is at the end of your performance, at the end of your workday, at the end of your day, at the end of your week, whatever you want to do, is identifying 3 things that you did well, 3 things that you appreciated, 3 things that made you smile that week, and why those things are something you're grateful for. But then I think also balancing that with, hey, here are 3 things that I could do better, because I think that kind of keeps you grounded in reality, but gives you tangible strategies to fix something you want to improve upon. Okay, and that's really it. Okay, is just how do we go about being more optimistic? So I wanted to start that off here on the Monday. It's a great day to start your week with some optimism. So I think either after you listen to this is thinking about what are some things I'm grateful for in my life, and then kind of build from there. All right. So once again, happy Monday. Good to see y'all. It's been I think a little bit over a week. I'm trying to get on here more often, but better late than never. So thank y'all for listening. Don't forget to like, rate, share, review, download the podcast wherever you listen to it. And don't forget, today is a great day to make an impact. All right, y'all. Talk to you soon.